This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Yeah, Frank here, he's got his own billiard room. Yes, it's what do you call it, Kramer? The billiard room. No. The name. The billiard. Not the billiards. It was... Come on, Rudy, come on. We call it the place to be. The place to be, yes, it's the place to be. Then I shall be there.
This is the place to be here tonight.
Time to play the game.
Party people in the place to be. It's about that time.
Place to be Nation, Scott Criscola and Justin Rosero. This is the Place to Be Podcast.
Very nice, Mr. Criscola. Oh, I'm sorry, Dennis.
I think they might hit a shock wall.
Actually, it's being John Akiyama is a better version of it.
What do you think, Woodling? You can finally tell Grant Owens you found new music.
I'll tell you what, I am impressed.
Sharon Lawson Brand? Skidamarinky Dinky Dink?
Yeah.
Skidamarinky Doo?
Hey, Nate, man, this is pretty much a highlight of my life right now. I had no idea you were going to be here. I wanted to drive that freaking hoe train of my whole youth. You're the man.
And I thought he meant Nate Milton, the Godfather from Kings of Sport. Do you really think that's the Godfather?
Yeah, I did.
All you have to do is break out that fuck money.
I ate the pot. What the mouth, you scraggly Canadian.
That's a bit much. You who murdered the dog with the sword, and I'm being a little too much.
Yeah, I like big dick myself. I was just curious. 5 years! 5 years! We've been doing podcasts. And we have this. This is trash.
To do worse than Josh Richard.
ROC and we don't stop. Boom Job DMC and we don't stop. It's your boy Jay-Z and we don't stop. Nigga ROC, we won't stop.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to the great episode of the one and only Place to Be Podcast. I'm your co-host, Justin Rosero, coming to you live here on this Tuesday evening. As always, with me, of course, is my PIC, Scott Criscola. Scott, how are you?
Good evening, JR. Happy Tuesday to you, sir. I can't remember the last time we actually recorded on Tuesday.
I feel like it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was probably a couple weeks ago.
I don't think it was that long ago.
I know. Welcome, Place to Be Nation, to episode 406 of The Mothership. And before we get started, I wanted to tell you, and I've been mentioning this the last couple times we've been on, that obviously, 500 is not around the corner. It's a ways away. But obviously 500 is huge. So I've been kicking around listening to some older podcasts, trying to find like some memorable moments in the history of the show. And if anybody's in the mood to just listen to old, like going back through the catalog, I highly recommend, just for the pure lunacy of it. I believe it's number 285. We did a mailbag. It was one of the first mailbags we did in the man cave I was in for the weekend, the Bruins game. And it was ridiculous. We had some really bizarre questions, and we had a 2001 SmackDown on one TV, and we had Saints Eagles wild card game on the other TV. It was a fun listen. So highly recommend listening to it again for you listeners after you listen to this one.
I'll say I recommend sticking around for this one, despite that open. But welcome as always.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great show. But yes, JR, it is 4:06 this evening, and how's it going?
Good. I feel like it's we're like a TV show that like went away, like Family Guy or something that went away for a while, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere it comes back, and now we're back to being on every week. But it's been a nice little run here.
It has been. I feel like it's like 24. We had that the long seasons, and then we were kind of we did like the occasional movie or whatever, and then we're gone for a while, and then all of a sudden a new season comes out of nowhere, and everybody's excited, and then we'll be gone again, and not gone, but it's a lot of fun. It's been good. Pounding into 2006.
Pounding it hard. Of course, we mentioned it on our last one. Kevin Kelly's show is on a little bit of a hiatus. Kevin's real busy with a lot of New Japan commitments and taking on some additional duties with ROH. So we're targeting, hopefully, post-July 4th to return with Kevin. And then Dangerous Alliance, of course, also having some issues. There's a lot going on with Will, computer issues, and stuff with him wrapping up his school year and all that. So a lot going down there as well. But he'll hopefully, he and I will be back at some point over the next month as well. But until then, Scott, we're going to put the pedal to the metal and keep grinding through these 06s. We got a couple of treats mixed in here as well that we'll talk about.
Kicking it old school. I've been enjoying it. I'm kicking it old school.
So I guess might as well get to it.
Let's dive in. Yeah, let's.
Hey, what is going on here?
A lot. Quite a bit.
And overtime. He's fixing the wires. His Roku.
Yes. We don't know where the hands have been. A lot of meaty plates. But tonight, inside the big steel box, we bring you Judgment Day 2006.
Judgment
Once
Day,
again,
starring Ari Gold. That we talk about every time we do Judgment Day.
I know. And this is another one of those shows, and I feel like we keep saying this, JR, as we go throughout 2006, that this is another show that probably haven't seen since it was on, and opinions may differ. I don't think anybody will argue against Backlash being abysmal. But this show is a little different. You might be thinking, oh, this is SmackDown's Backlash. Maybe not.
Backlash was rough.
Backlash was atrocious. This, in my opinion, not nearly. I mean, it wasn't WrestleMania by any stretch, but it wasn't total garbage. Depends on your point of view. This would be a good one for the Place Be Nation to kind of have differing opinions on. May 21st, 2006, live from the U.S. Airways Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Only the second time we have ever been here, JR. Do you remember the first time?
SummerSlam 03.
Correct, sir. And just like he was...
You in the house!
You in the house! And just like he was in the building on that night, guess who was in the building on this night? Superstar Billy Graham was in the crowd. They showed him about midway through the show. Of course, 2003 was a whole big return right before the Hall of Fame and everything, but this one he was just sitting in the crowd.
And now he's the trainer for Jackie Bradley Jr.
Yes. Apparently he is. And D. Gordon. Yes, this is Arizona's second pay-per-view in history after SummerSlam 2003. Your attendance, good one, 15,421. So packed house for a SmackDown pay-per-view, JR.
I think there's a specific reason, Scott. If you look at the geography of the show, and you look at who's on top as world champion, I think it kind of
fits.
Yeah.
But even your buy rate, 0.63. Actually not bad for a secondary. It's better than Backlash. Backlash was below 6. And your announcers, who were particularly awesome on this night, and I'll mention it a few times in my points, Michael Cole and Tazz on the sidelines. JR, give us Report Les Satins.
Do you remember the theme show for this show?
The theme is, I absolutely do, This Fire Burns by Kill Switch Engage, which you'll hear quite a bit over the next 7 years.
Yes, you will.
After this. And we'll tell you why later on down the line.
All right, now if you get this, I'll crown you the winner of memory. Sponsored by...
I half remember. It's some weird nutritional company, right? Wyotech or something?
Ooh, close. Viotech Nutritionals.
Viotech Nutritional. I knew it was some weird kind of like Ico Pro of the 2000s kind of thing.
You lose, sir.
I lose. But it was something like that. Honor roll?
Oh, damn it. I had the Willy Wonka queued up and I messed it up. Do it again. Ready? You lose, sir.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
You're a monster.
So my Ryan Schmock's antenna went up. Oh, trivia contest. All right, championship roll call. SmackDown champions Rey Mysterio, just 49 days into his reign. JBL, still U.S. champion, 40 days into his reign. How's that possible? Didn't they win the same night?
Yeah. Come on, Sutton.
Math.
Grief.
Sutton math. M&M, your tag team champions, are just 45 days into their reign. And Gregory Helms, $112 into his reign, Cruiserweight title. Did JBL lose it and win it back or something stupid? Maybe? I don't know. We'll see.
I don't think so. I think he just... No. Yeah. That'd be stupid. No. 9 days later? That makes no sense. Those
numbers can be confusing. All right, releases. On 5/26, Orlando Jordan was released due to having unauthorized person with him on the road and backstage at events. In 309 matches with the promotion, his TV record is 42-64-1. OJ was a guy that, watching him, a little better than I had remembered him being. Like, he had, spurts here and there. I remember he had that little late run in late 05 where he got into the U.S. title mix. Of course, had the squash of Benoit, but that was pretty good in that four-way. I just remembered him as always just being blah, but he had a little flashes here and there. I don't think it's a big loss, but
that whole He had an unauthorized person on the road
well,
with him.
Well, remember he had the underage boy or whatever with him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't that what it was?
Yes.
Something weird, him.
But it is pretty funny.
He's an odd little duck.
I'm looking up. I'm gonna bail you out here, Sutton. I'm gonna try to bail you out here, and see if you just botch the typing. But I'm gonna look and see if JBL
go ahead
lost.
And read the rest of this.
Go
TV
right ahead.
by the numbers. SmackDown reaches 353 episodes. Velocity $197. On May 1st, it was reported that Kurt Angle showing more wear and tear from the business. Of course, that'll come into play over the coming months. On May 2nd, more speculation has risen that Rob Van Dam will be cashing in on the winner of the Judgment Day main event here tonight. On 5/9, WWE.com reporting that Batista and Booker T were involved in a fight during the making of a SummerSlam commercial shoot. Big John Gaburik said the fight lasted 5 minutes, was brutal, bloody, vicious affair. Both men went behind closed doors to clear the air before resuming filming. What caused the fight, John said, was a personal issue before the two, and we'll definitely talk about that more in the future. On 5/12, WWE started sending DX commercial material to cable and satellite providers, so we'll see that if that crops up to anything. On 5/14, Vince McMahon said he doesn't want to turn John Cena heel because of his merchandise sales and doesn't want to see that dwindle the more things change. At 5/17, Sharmell and Melina were in a backstage confrontation at a house show in El Paso over Melina's past with Batista. Of course, since then, Melina has had heat backstage, and the confrontation is broken up by JBL. And on 5/18, reported that Booker T had earned respect since that fight with Batista. And on 5/19, the first major film by WWE Films, See No Evil, was released. The film went through many changes, where he was originally, remember, Ice Cream Man.
Yes,
EYE.
that's right. I do remember that, yeah.
The Good Night Man and Good Night. Before See No Evil was finalized, the film was made on $8 million and made $18.6 million in the U.S. box office. So it's actually profitable. Little horror genre niche crowd.
Yes.
Matt Hardy defeated Simon Dean, of course, in the dark match. Tonight, Scott, we're going to crown a king. It has been 3 years, 27 days, and 10 months since the last king was crowned. And do you remember who?
It was Brock Lesnar.
Very good, sir.
Yes. And just to confer, Sutton needs to check a new calculator because JBL has not lost the title since WrestleMania. So.
There you go. All right. That's it for him.
All right. So there we
Done
go.
with him.
There's your
wiping my hands. Washing
report.
them clean.
Yes.
By the way, we should also know, because he's not on the show at all, we're not going to talk about him. Randy Orton was hurt, injured. I think we mentioned it at Mania, so he's out. Was it the suspension or the injury at this point? Both?
Suspension.
No, suspension.
Probably a little of both.
All right, so he's gone now for a bit. So we start to see a little bit of new talent, and he's out. So just wanted to call that out.
Okay. All right, let's dive into our opener. Our first match is our first of 3 title matches this evening, JR. The WWE Tag Team Championships on the line. Your champions, as mentioned, Mr. Mercury and Mr. Nitro, who've held it for a little while, but they were in a bit of a slump going into this match. A dither. Explain, JR, why they were in a slump going into this show.
On 4/7, Kendrick and London, that is Paul London and Brian Kendrick, defeated the tag team champions in a non-title match. A week later, Kendrick pinned Nitro in a singles bout, and the week after that, London beat Mercury. On 4/28, London and Kendrick teamed with Super Crazy and defeated Eminem and Gregory Helms, and that continued the losing streak for the champions. The two teams faced off on May 5th, but Eminem jumped the challengers before the bell and laid them out. On 5/12, it was announced that Kendrick and London would challenge at the pay-per-view, and thanks to his sister Jillian Hall, the challengers were able to sneak up on the champs and pants them in the ring. On 5/19, Kendrick, London, and Jillian defeated Nitro, Mercury, and Melina. So the champions' losing streak is now at 5 matches. So they are quite falling apart here heading into the pay-per-view. But now the straps are on the line, so we'll see if things can turn around. Eminem, of course, back as champion, stalwart team on SmackDown, but currently in a bit of a slump, like we mentioned. I like this reunion here for London and Kendrick. Of course, they had tagged way back in like 03 or whatever before Kendrick left the promotion. They're great workers. The crowd loves them, and we need some faces on top of the division.
Yes.
So London and Nitro start things off with a stalemate, but London trips up Nitro and goes to work on the arm. We get some quick tags from there with focused arm work. Kendrick fights out of a double team and grabs an near fall on Mercury. Great pacing by the challengers, keeping the champs off balance with tagging, speed, and arm work. Eminem bails to the floor, but London backdrops Kendrick on top of them. But back inside, London whiffs on a flying body press. Eminem goes to work with some double teams, including a nice double gut buster. London escapes and tags in Kendrick, who comes in red hot until Nitro gets over the neck snap across the top rope. Eminem gets a snapshot, but London makes the last-second save. Nitro hooks in a tight chinlock. Kendrick tries to escape, but Eminem maintains control, picks up some near falls. Melina gets involved as well as Eminem keeps working the back and the neck. Kendrick causes Eminem to collide and make a tag. London cleans house, but Melina breaks up the pin by crawling in and screaming. Eminem almost steal the win, but they can't put the challengers away. Kendrick dumps Nitro to the floor and dives out. But Melina pushes Nitro away and he crashes to the floor. Eminem collides again and Mercury crashes into Melina, allowing London to get the roll-up for the win. I thought it was a really good opener. I thought it was a great moment. London and Kendrick get a big pop and ovation. I thought it was a really feel-good moment for them. I think it's a smart move, too. I think it's time for get a face team on top of the division that can work, have some standout matches, unique to SmackDown that Raw doesn't have, and just let them run with it. Eminem, I thought, are consummate pros. They've proven that over the past year. After the match, of course, Melina berates Joey Mercury, smacks him around. Nitro backs her up, and the two start to work over Mercury. As we see the crumbling of the great team, the year that they've had, over the past year on SmackDown. We get a long back and forth fight with Melina kicking the ref in the nuts, and Teddy Long comes out. He gets thrown down, and finally they separate them. So talk about the match, and then we'll talk about Eminem's legacy in the split.
Well, that's actually my point number one. Well, that's actually my point number two, but I'll start with that one. It was inevitable. They had gone through a long year, and even you had said, JR, that they, at times on our pay-per-views, that they hadn't really, they hadn't really been a consistent force. Like, it seemed like they kept going 50-50, win here, lose here, win here, lose here, and they hadn't really dominated like they should have. So at this point, it was probably time to break them up, and I don't know if you could tell from a distance who was the bigger star, if it was Mercury, if it was Nitro. They both seemed, pretty even in that aspect. Maybe Nitro got a bit of an edge there. But it needed to happen. It's time to start refreshing the roster of singles wrestlers, and as we'll see over the next few months, some more tag teams will come in. But it definitely needed to happen because they had a good year. But SmackDown is kind of evolving with injuries and such, so they probably were due for a switch. But then we'll see a little bit later in the show that SmackDown will be their future anyway.
Right.
Point two, to kind of piggyback point one, it was time for a fresh team at the top, and London and Kendrick were crazy over. Fans were big time digging them in the entrance during this match. This is a great team to be on top, so I definitely concur with you on that, JR, that these guys could have matches with anybody. Whether you put two singles wrestlers together or put a tag team wrestler, get some fresh regular tag teams, I think these guys will look good against anybody. So this is a great move for SmackDown to have a real solid, athletic, risk-taking tag team at the top of the card, the tag team card. So I'm very much happy about that. And the match was great because of it. Point three, this is also a perfect example, and I've said this on all of our vaults this year and even late 2005. This proves that SmackDown's tag division is 10 times better than Raw's tag division. And that's because they're just using it better. You've got decent teams on Raw. I mean, Cade and Murdoch are a pretty good tag team, but they're not doing anything. You never see them.
Right.
And SmackDown is doing a better job of promoting their tag division. Meanwhile, Raw's got the more consistent, steady, historic lineage. Their belts are the ones going back to, the 70s, 60s, whereas these are the ones that Stephanie started in 2002. But the tag division on SmackDown is head and shoulders better simply because you have talent at the top, and London and Kendrick are a prime example of that, and you could create some other teams as well. You have a lot of guys. And they're on more. I mean, you just see the tag, particularly on SmackDown, the show itself, more consistent. So, point one, it was time for Eminem to break up. Point two, great time to have a fresh, exciting team like London and Kendrick. This was the right team to put over. And point three, this match proves that SmackDown has the better tag division at the moment than Raw does. So there you go. London and Kendrick, your new blue belt.
Hang on. I wanted to talk about this breakup first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I thought it starts prepping, and now he just mows right along.
Sorry.
So the breakup to me, it feels like missed opportunity, and I get what you're saying that it was kind of needed. They've had the weirdest run where they felt dominant. And It's been pretty much exactly a year, right? Was it Judgment Day 05 where they won the belts?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so pretty much a year. And like they feel like they've been the top dogs on SmackDown. But for whatever reason, they lost a ton. I mean, like, I feel like anytime they were getting momentum, they lose. Then Heidenreich and Animal held the belts for a while. Then Batista and Rey knocked them off. It's like every time they get the belts and they drop, they feel like they never really got that run to be on top. So when a loss like this happened, I guess it made sense that it led to the breakout because it felt more like this growing frustration that they can never get rolling versus like the end of a long dominant run. So I guess it made sense. I think they saw something obviously in Nitro that they wanted to go solo with him. Obviously Melina in their minds was a big part of that act. Mm-hmm. As we'll see, the split doesn't necessarily stick very long. We'll talk about that too. But I'm definitely down with Kendrick and London. I think it was a very good choice for them to be champions.
Yeah,
it made a lot of sense, and it's just Eminem to me just feels like a bit of wasted potential from the ability they had, the package they had honed from their day in developmental that they brought up to the main stage. Mm-hmm. And maybe they had done all they could do, but it felt a lot to me. Their run feels a lot to me like the Smoking Guns, where that's
a good comparison.
They were champions for a while in a downtime for the division. They were good in the ring. They could be counted on to have good matches, but at the end of the day, they were never going to be like a dominant team. And then eventually they split up. So
yeah,
that's what they always felt like to me, like a dominant champions in an era where it wasn't that impressive to be dominant champions.
Yeah, and so April 2005 they debuted, and 2 weeks after they made their TV debut, just on camera, their first match on SmackDown, they beat Rey and Eddie to win the tag titles.
Right. Okay.
That was in the middle of the Eddie Rey feud. So yeah, it was right about a year. Does it seem like it's too short? Could they have gone on longer? Or was it because of all this flim-flam booking with them that it felt like it petered out?
Oh, if they were more dominant, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like absolutely they could have.
Yeah. Who came off? I mean, was it right to have Nitro as the heel and Mercury as the face?
I don't think Mercury's the face. Mercury's done. Well, wasn't there? Does he get suspended? Isn't that why? Is that part of why they broke up? I need to look now. Is this where he gets the?
In April 2006, to anger. Yep.
Right.
Let's see. Off-screen, Nitro and Mercury did not get along, and WWE management decided to split the tag team and send Nitro and Melina to the... Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Mm-hmm. In addition, Mercury was about to begin serving a suspension for violating the wellness policy.
Right, okay, thought so.
So, he was getting pinched.
Right. So, combo both. I think they saw something in Nitro. They've liked him for a while, obviously, tough enough winner. I think they saw something with him and Melina as a pair. So I think it was going to happen eventually. I think Mercury was bound to be the Jannetty of this whole thing by the end of the day,
Right.
But this gave them reason to do so, the suspension and I guess the issues. I mean, I don't know. The issue with Morrison and Melina is they seem like lightning rods backstage, and I don't know if it's all Morrison at all. I think it's probably mainly Melina. So my guess is that Mercury had issues with Melina, and Nitro was part of that, obviously, and all the disrespect he was getting from the Batista stuff. And at the time, Melina was very, caused a lot of trouble backstage.
Yes, she did. But it felt like, and we'll talk about this later in the show, it felt like the company did like her because it felt like they were giving her a lot of camera time. So I feel like in spite of her heat, they had her on camera a lot, and we'll get to that as the show progresses. So yes, as I said a moment ago, Brian Kendrick, Paul London, your new WWE Tag Team Champions. We have our first of 3 King of the Ring flashback moments, JR, and we go back to the first King of the Ring pay-per-view, not the first King of the Ring tournament, the first King of the Ring pay-per-view, 1993, in the Male Family Gathering in Dayton, where Bret Hart, of course, won the first King of the Ring pay-per-view tournament. Next up, a match that was spurred from the King of the Ring tournament this year. Mm-hmm. But I got a lot of issues with this match in different ways. But how did these two high... Yeah. Jeff Jarrett and Lex Luger and Tatanka? No. How do we get to this point?
On April 28th, an alliance between Finlay and Booker T began to surface. With the help of Booker, Finlay dispatched of rookie gunner Scott, who was being mentored by Chris Benoit. Benoit came out after the bout to ensure Scott was safe from any further assault. A week later, Finlay defeated Benoit in a King of the Ring match after hitting Benoit in the throat with a chair. On 5/19, Benoit and Scott defeated Booker and Finlay, and this match was announced at the pay-per-view press conference. Who was Gunner Scott? Why am I drawing a big blank? It's driving me nuts.
I'm actually looking right now.
I know it's someone that became someone.
Gunner Scott
Brent
is
Albright.
Brent Albright.
Okay, there we go. I knew he was someone that I knew.
Yep. Of course, he was on SmackDown. Gunner, former NWA World Champion. He beat Adam Pearce. He was at. He's actually
the brother of the guy who died.
Gary.
Yeah.
Let me see. Don't.
No, doesn't look like
think so. No.
Okay.
But he was actually he won the title at an ROH show, Death Before Dishonor 6, August 2nd, 2008. But anyway. All right. Benoit out of the title picture, of course. I thought it was a great consolation for fans, though. Gotta let these guys go beat the shit out of each other. Finlay's been a revelation and a force on SmackDown. He cost Benoit that King of the Ring match. Sets up a hard-hitting brawl. We get a long lockup to start with both sliding to the floor, remaining locked in. Both take it to the mat, and they trade a quick flurry of grinding submission holds until Benoit grabs a headlock. The match resets, and we get some stiff chops start to flow until Finlay takes Benoit down into a tight chinlock. Finlay smacks Benoit, and Benoit gets fired up, crushing Finlay with a slap and stiff knees and strikes with then a tight backbreaker for 2. Finlay comes back with a thumb to the eye and a stiff lariat that goes to a unique arm submission, jamming his boot into Benoit's head. Benoit powers out of a crossface, but Finlay boots him back down. Benoit reverses a clothesline and hits triple Germans, but then whiffs on a diving headbutt. Benoit gets a leg whip, but can't hook on the sharpshooter. Finlay grabs a chair, but Benoit baseball slides it into him and then hits a headbutt back in the ring for a close near fall. Everyone bit on that one. I thought the crowd was really, really into it by this point. They were quiet early on. They were dead. And then they worked their way into this one. Finlay clubs the back of the neck and almost steals the win. Finlay starts to work over that repaired neck that, of course, Benoit is always favoring, spiking on the apron and jamming his elbow into his throat. Finlay continues an aggressive attack, locking in a modified dragon sleeper. Finlay's so great that, to me, the best part with him is anytime Finlay or Benoit gets a breath or any opening at all, he quickly strikes and cuts it off. So anytime Benoit gets any kind of glimmer of hope, Finlay dives in and ends it. So I like that aggressiveness from Finlay. It's a big part of what he is at this point, and always was. Benoit comes back with some Germans, but Finlay blocks a third with some nasty headbutts. Benoit hits an enziguri to knock Finlay to the floor. Finlay misses a shillelagh shot, and Benoit hits a German on the floor in a crazy spot. Benoit hits 3 amigos, but Finlay knocks him to the apron to block the diving headbutt. Finlay works his shoulder, but takes his eyes off for a split second, and Benoit quickly forces him down to the crossface and tap. I thought this was a tremendous fight. It was long, it was hard-hitting, it was intense. I love the end where Finlay finally gave Benoit that daylight, and Benoit took advantage. He pounced on it, and it was too late for Finlay. The crowd was up and down, but I think it's kind of a hidden classic. It's stiff as all hell. They beat the shit out of each other. Something we haven't really seen on WWE TV, but that they have in their back pocket to dump out, and we see it a few times in 2006, where they just say, here's 21 minutes for Finlay and Benoit in 2006. So they say just go out there and fight. And I love that. I just love that storyline where Finlay suffocates Benoit, figuratively, suffocates Benoit, cutting off any chance he has, any glimmer he has, and then the one time he takes his eyes off him for a split second, Benoit grabs a crossface and taps him out. So I like the psychology there, the way the match was built, and I like how they won the crowd over as well. Okay. Point one, you knew going, like you've said in your excellent analysis, you knew going in this was not going to be feigned punches or arm drags and that kind of thing. You're just going to see two guys just punch each other in the face for 20 minutes. Point two, for the first time, in my opinion, for the first time since the invasion and since the alliance and all that jazz, this match actually had a taste of WCW feel to it. If I felt like this was a match you could have seen on Nitro or on, which maybe you did, or on a WCW pay-per-view in 98 or whatever. It had that WCW feel, and that's not an insult. It didn't have a WWE feel, it had a WCW feel. And I know both guys came from there, I get the point. But they've wrestled both guys have, Finlay for this short period of time, but Benoit since 2000. But this is the first time that it feels like the Benoit of 98 or 97, But point three, as great as this match was, and maybe hindsight's 2020, but and you don't know what was going on medicinally backstage, but was this probably the best match to give Benoit at this moment in his life or career? Here's a guy who's just gonna, Finlay only works in one speed. Do you really want to have a guy who's you're going to get potatoed in the head constantly, and you're going to get more than one diving headbutt? And
yeah, I don't think they knew at the time. I don't think anyone knew. You know what I mean? People love this stuff in 06. I mean, there were probably worries that he was going too hard, but I mean, everything that came out in 07 late and after really was, no one. The head stuff just wasn't known. Mm-hmm. In all walks of society. I mean, NFL, anywhere. It didn't really start leaking out till later. So it was hard to say, this guy is going to go and snap due to CTE or dementia or whatever at this point. I don't think it's any worse than other matches he was having. I mean, you could look back at Money in the Bank the year before when he was doing the headbutts on the ladder and all that. You know what I mean? All that stuff. And I don't know. I think that's a complete hindsight take on it.
Yeah. That's why I'm not pushing the issue because, again, it's very difficult at this point. We're trying to separate it, but we're getting very close. So,
yeah, of course,
you're wondering.
Well, we don't have to worry about him for a while now, right? Because isn't this when he takes his time off after the show too?
I think so. Yeah,
I don't think we see him again till October.
Yeah, I don't think we see him. I think he takes the summer off. So,
no, of course, it's getting tough, and 07 is going to be real tough, and we know that. We've covered it. When he first arrived in 2000, we talked about it on that show, and we'll talk about it again as we get closer. That we're going to do our best to separate the two and just cover it. We're not going to leave the blank spot. It is what it is. It's awful. It's terrible. But I think in retrospect, you look at matches like this, and it's one of probably 1,000. That was a bad idea.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean,
in a perfect world, he probably retires in 02. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Hangs it up and maybe.
Like I said, I think it's because we're in that window now.
Yeah,
it's hard to differentiate. Having said that, though, the match itself, you're absolutely right. I mean, this match is tremendous. Might be top 3 candidate for match of the year at this stage, maybe.
Well, if we do our April to April, we can talk about the end of the show, but it may. Yeah. We'll have to see if you think it moves up to number 1. But
this was a fantastic match, and again, I'm not pushing the issue because it's very hard to say what the hell anybody was even thinking. I mean, Eddie had been gone now almost 7 months, but this is a different case than what Eddie, the Eddie thing was about roids in general. Benoit's issues are something that, again, like you said.
It wasn't even really roids at the time, right?
No.
Wasn't it more around, at the time it was Eddie's drug past, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, yes, it kicked out of the wellness, and I think everyone knew, but remember they just said about the wear and tear on his heart from years of drug abuse. And that was the big story, so.
Right.
I just don't think it was still not front of mind, especially for a guy like Benoit that everybody from an internet perspective where wrestling was being talked about was in the bag for this guy. So, I mean, no one was thinking of it or looking at it in anything negative. I mean, pretty much everyone was a Benoit apologist in many ways, for a long time up until everything happened, even past.
Yeah.
Just because of who he was. So, I don't think anyone at the time, maybe someone out there, looked at this match and was like, oh, I don't think Benoit should do this. They were probably saying, oh, WWE should let Benoit do this more. You know what I mean? If anything,
right? Yeah, no, it's true. It just got in my head today as I was watching the match, particularly when they were just punching each other, and then he does a flying headbutt, and he always holds his head, and you're like, oh, would you just stop doing that? Yeah. Find another move,
especially twice here when he whiffs on one. Yeah,
just find something else. So anyway, Chris Benoit wins by submission in a fantastic match. That could be a candidate for match of the year. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Next up, a match that probably won't be a candidate for match of the year, but continues a theory I mentioned a few moments ago. JR, how did we get here?
We did get here on 4/21 when JBL officially fired Jillian Hall as his imaging consultant after weeks of verbal abuse, claiming she wasn't doing enough for him. The next week, Jillian and Melina got into an argument backstage, and things degenerated into a brawl. On 5/5, it was announced that the two divas would tussle on pay-per-view. A week later, Jillian began associating herself with London and Kendrick and was able to humiliate Melina by ripping off her skirt in the ring. On 5/19, Jillian pinned Melina in that 6-person tag match that we mentioned earlier.
Yep.
So feud started to make up, or started at the makeup table, and seemed a bit pointless, but of course kind of bled into that other tag feud. Jillian no longer with JBL, as a face now, like we mentioned. Nitro comes out with Melina, but gets thrown out. Usual cat fight stuff to start with fire and a lot of fire between the two and hair pulling. Jillian showed pretty good fire throughout here. Melina turns the tide on the floor and lays in some kicks and knees. Melina hooks up body scissors, but Jillian tries to reverse it to a roll-up. Melina keeps laying in strikes. It has been a bit more stiff and nasty than the usual Diva matches. Melina eats a pair of knees as she comes off the top, and Jillian makes a comeback, spiking Melina in the corner and getting a sunset flip for the win. And the referee didn't see Melina's hands in the ropes. I thought it was a decent Divas match. There was some good energy and anger. I thought Jillian was really good in this fiery face role. Better than... she was funny at times in the image consultant role, but I thought she was really good here. I thought she showed a lot of, face confidence and brought the fight.
Yeah, it was entertaining, surprising because we hadn't seen Jillian before. Point one, as mentioned, it's good they're not cutting her loose. And they gave her a second role. It's not like they were going to, fire her from the company or whatever because she wasn't JBL's image girl anymore. So it was nice to see her in a role still, because I think she could bring a lot to the table. So that's a good point. Number two, you could tell they're making Melina a star, regardless of what the issues backstage are. I mean, she was all over the opening match, all over the post match, and now she's in a match. So in the first 45 minutes of this pay-per-view, Melina is practically on almost half of it.
Yes.
So regardless of her heat backstage,
oh yeah, they were all in.
They still love her. So whether she won this match or not was irrelevant. And point three, I was surprised she lost, even though it wasn't a complete loss. I mean, she had her arms on the rope. I was surprised she lost.
Yeah, but it's part of the story.
Yeah, it was. It was thinking about that now. Yeah, the fact
she needed to lose shitty to get pissed.
Yeah,
and because it leads to something later. So that was all part of the building frustration. They had to have a frustrating night, and I actually think Jillian has potential too as a face. I don't know. I liked her a lot in this match. I had forgotten because I knew she was good in the ring, and she always was well regarded. She was kind of hidden during the JBL stuff, but I thought, I thought she had a lot of energy here. I thought she definitely had potential to be another female star that they could use, especially even if they shifted her to Raw at some point. So I thought it was a good chance to take. Why not? They're definitely lacking. Because who are the other faces really? Trish. I think we talked about it. Trish and Ashley. I mean that's really it, right?
Yeah.
Now that Mickey's heel, Tori, I guess. I mean they don't really have another worker face diva.
No. We talked about this during Backlash. Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm them, I know the draft's coming up, so we'll see. It may actually happen. I don't remember off the top of my head if Jillian shifts over to Raw, but she certainly should have because she'd be a good addition to the title mix and working with Trish. But I liked it. I thought this was a much better Divas match than expected. And on cards like this, when little matches here and there can either sink or kind of make the show, where you don't have like a blowaway show. Mm-hmm. Or a trash heap of a show. This is one that could be made or broke up and down the card. This is a match that, it may not save the show. It certainly doesn't say, oh, God, I had that, Jillian Melina match on it. It's actually not. It's not too bad. If what's her name had picked this match as her favorite Diva match of all time.
Cameron or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, it's nothing offensive, and it was not. Again, it's nice to see Jillian get a second chance. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk more about Melina in a moment. In fact, is it right now? Let me see. Is it right up after this match? So Jillian wins the match over Melina, and actually, yeah, it is coming up now. Well, after the match, JR, did you mention Crystal?
No, I have her right here.
No, you didn't. Okay,
we go backstage where Crystal comes out, or Crystal rather comes out after the match for an interview with Melina. It gets smarmy, and Melina calls her a bitch, and they brawl. And then we go backstage where JBL cuts a promo, but runs into Chavo, who's there to support Rey Mysterio. JBL yells shit at him about Rey losing, and compares it to beating Eddie, saying he'll beat Rey as well.
God, enough, enough. Chavo looked so awkward in this interview segment. Ugh, enough. Dreadful. We have our second King of the Ring flashback moment, and we go back to the quintessential flashback moment in King of the Ring history, and that is, of course, 1996, Stone Cold Steve Austin in Milwaukee. Takes it, runs with it, and the next thing you know, we are in the Attitude Era. Next up, JR, we have our second title match of the evening, this time the Cruiserweight Championship on the line. We talked about who our champion is, but now finally, he's actually only is wrestling one guy instead of a cavalcade of guys.
Mm-hmm.
How did we get here? Who was his opponent?
Pretty simple. On 5/12, Super Crazy defeated Nunzio and Kid Cash to earn a title shot here at the pay-per-view. Helms still reigning as champion, having a good run with his ground-based offense in the middle of a high-flying division. I think it's great that Crazy's still hanging around because Hoovy and Psychosis are pretty much gone. So Crazy kind of doing his own thing. He's well-liked and utilized. Of course, he's still clinging to the Wandeer. Comes out on that. Crazy brings the fight to Helms, grabbing quick near falls and then knocking Helms out to the floor before crashing out to on top of him with a somersault senton. Helms gets a stun gun to cut Crazy off and then hits a swinging neck breaker and standard neck breaker for a first near falls. Helms grabs a modified Cobra Clutch and grinds Crazy down to the mat, landing some knees to the back and not relenting. We get some long stretches of submission holds, which quiet the crowd down. Crazy dodges an elbow and hits a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, dropkick, and standing moonsault for a near fall. Crazy hits a missile dropkick, but whiffs on a top rope moonsault. Crazy dodges a Shining Wizard, but can't capitalize. So Helms comes back with a near fall and a roll-up and gets a blockbuster for another 2 count. Back end of the match has been much better, I thought, with the good near falls and a focused neck-based attack by Helms. Mm-hmm. Helms catches the charging Crazy and powerbombs him, puts his feet on the ropes for the win. I thought the middle of the match slogged a bit, but it got really strong at the end. I think Helms has a good gimmick going as being the mat-based cruiserweight and kind of grinding down the high flyers and using that strategy to win the matches. I thought it was a good effort by Crazy, a good challenger, and I think these types of matches are helping Helms build credibility, build up the belt, and it sets him up to have a eventual high flyer come in and knock him off that can out-thwart his style. So we'll see if that happens, but that's kind of the way they're building it. So I like this idea of the way Helms has been running things. So what do you think of his reign so far?
I think it's been fantastic. Again, change of pace, and that brings up one of my points. Did the match not feel like a cruiser match because they worked bigger? So, in other words, it's good to have a change of pace and a change of style for a cruiserweight match, but does it diminish the cruiserweight division as a whole, or you think it works because of Helms' gimmick? If you understand the question, if you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, the WF or E cruiserweight division, for the most part, it's always been a little different than the typical, like what we remember from WCW, right? Which is all pretty much high flying for the most part.
Right.
We've actually gotten more of that lately over the last year or so with some of the guys we've had mixed in, like the Kid Cash and Psychosis and stuff like that. So it's been a little bit more, high flying than in the past. But no, I think it's Helms' style. But I think he goes all the way back to even like, Brian Christopher. You know what I mean? Like it reminds me a lot like that. A guy that can fly but really is working a ground game. And I think it was a product of his style more than the overall direction of the division, because we just saw some high-flying stuff earlier. But I think it was a concerted effort, because I just don't think Helms is a guy that can, take it to the air the whole match. I think and it made sense as the heel to do it that way.
Okay. Yeah, I was just watching the match going, Is this changing the direction of the cruiserweight division as a whole? Is it more Helms' gimmick? And I think it's the latter. I think it's more Helms' gimmick, which makes for unique cruiserweight matches. Point 2, it's great to finally have a one-on-one cruiser match. I feel like, and I said this at both New Year's Revolution and not New Year's Revolution, the Royal Rumble and No Way Out, that it's just like have Helms in there with a bunch of guys. It's nice to kind of see like a centered feud.
Well, even if it's not a feud.
A match.
Right, singles challenges. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let him run through a bunch of guys on these pay-per-views. Let him run through Crazy. Let him run through Kid Cash. Let him run through, Kendrick. Or, whoever you want to throw in there. Let him go one by one and pick them off and build his cred. And then when you find the guy you want to be the face that knocks him off, you do it.
Yeah. So it was good to see a a one-on-one match finally after 2 car wreck matches earlier in the year. And finally, again, to kind of piggyback what we were saying about bigger cruisers, Super Crazy was actually a perfect opponent for Helms because as Ariel is super crazy he's another one who's a little thicker than a normal cruiser. So he could kind of adapt to what Helms is the story Helms is trying to tell in the ring. So he was a perfect guy, I think, as an opponent for this match, as to continue the whole gimmick of Helms being more of a map-based grinder who can pull the wings off the high flyers.
And I think Super Crazy is kind of I don't want to say hidden gem for them, but a guy that maybe they didn't expect to be kind of the centerpiece of the Mexicools when they signed him. I think they looked at Hoovy that way, but Crazy's always had an innate charisma and really connected with the fans. I mean, you saw it in his ECW days. He had a great connection with the fans, big time. And he was part of all those great three-way brawls with Tajiri and Mikey. And I thought that carried around here. I thought he still had that connection. I think we'll see it. I mean, he hangs around for a bit, so I think we'll really see it play out. But I don't think they quite realized what they had in Crazy when they signed him. And then they see it evolve here. And I'm glad they gave him the shot because he definitely really goes out there, and he's a guy that can be credible in winning or can be credible in putting guys over.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So a very impressive match. I was actually surprised. I didn't think it was going to be as good as I thought it was going to be.
Where do you put this Helms character kind of... I mean, I know he was Hurricane for a while, but kind of where do you... Is this his best work, you think? Is there a period... Yes. So you think better than any Hurricane part?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think a lot of his in-ring work got stunted by the gimmick and the fact that a lot of times... Now, you're talking about... obviously.
I don't want to count his 3-count stuff in WCW because he was...
Okay.
That was like his best when he was 2000, 2001, where he was like the, Sugar Shane Helms and dominating the cruisers. Like, that was really good work. I liked his initial Hurricane stuff when he first came in, when he was just kind of Shane Hurricane Helms or whatever.
Right.
And 03 was a good stretch for him, too, where he had the stuff with The Rock and, him and Rosie, or him and Kane did the, were tag team champions at the end of 02. Like, I thought that was maybe his best stretch, top to bottom. And I'd say this is up there second for WWE stuff.
When he was able to kind of separate the gimmick, you saw smatterings of it. But I really do think that getting rid of the cape and the makeup and the hair and all that crap, I think really shows that Helms himself is a really good worker. So I love this run. I love the theme song. I dug it. It was different for him. And on an extra point, a fourth point, JR, that I wanted to bring up, we've talked about how great Cole and Tazz have been. They were hilarious in this match. Like, Tazz is just mumbling to himself, and he's like, Tazz is like, he never said that he wasn't a high flyer. Well, I talked to him on the air. He did say it. I don't care what he said. He's not a... It's just so ridiculous.
Well, and the thing, we haven't really talked about
couple. It was hilarious.
We haven't really talked about it. I guess we can, later maybe. That sadly, this is their last show as a team, JBL and Tazz. So we'll probably talk about it in the next show. But Tazz and Cole, their final showing, and they've been great. I mean, they've been really good since day one. They've had good chemistry.
Yep.
The way they break down matches, and we talked about it back at SummerSlam 02 when they first had their debut as a team. How they brought just a sense of legitimacy and real sport feel to the show. And they've only gotten better. The way Cole would key Tazz up and let him knock out, home run after home run with analysis by setting him up for questions. And they'd bicker here and there, but, not over the top. And I think they're kind of the evolution, if you look at the great teams, right? Gorilla, or even if you want to say Vince and Jesse / Gorilla Jesse, and then Gorilla Bobby, and then King and JR. And I think Cole and Tazz were, even if you want to put JR Heyman in there, Cole and Tazz to me were like the next evolution of that lineage. JR and King to me died in 01, and that was it. This version doesn't count to me. So yeah, I mean, Cole and Tazz are great for the 4 years they were together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 06 is some of their best stuff. I mean, there's some really good stuff out there of them. So I was definitely sad when they were getting broken up. I mean, it made sense. Like I said, we'll talk about it why. And but as a whole, I think they rank up there to me as one of the best teams in company history as far as commentary goes. Yes,
absolutely. And I think they were able to do it for a couple of reasons. Number one, they were left alone not that they weren't bothered with, but they weren't as scrutinized heavily because the show was taped as JR and King were. Mm-hmm. And number two, they had to work a little harder because a lot of their feuds over the past 3 years have been very mat-based, very work rate-based, and there wasn't a whole bunch of, storyline hooks and goofy stuff. So they really, I thought in a lot of cases, a lot of the SmackDown pay-per-views, particularly in 2003, they had to work a little harder because they had to tell a different story than King and JR did. So I applaud Cole and Taz for their evolution over the last
and they
years,
worked hard to be a team and to work off each other and not just get their material in, not just do their shtick. Like, Cole would set up Taz, Taz would do his thing. Taz would kind of mock Cole. Cole would stand up for, it was a nice, I don't know. They just had a really nice chemistry. You could tell they enjoyed it. And I know eventually they ended up having problems, and I believe that is partially what led to the split. But they were even doing the radio show, I think, at that point. So that they had a lot going on. I think they're a real bright spot of this period. And I don't, let me ask you this. Do you think SmackDown, is the brand split as effective out of the gate if they didn't have Cole and Taz to be pretty strong from a commentary point of view?
Absolutely not.
Like, because they really forged the identity of SmackDown out of the gate with those two guys. They
had to. Because, again, a lot of the storylines on SmackDown were very mat-based, very based in just two great workers and some minimal storyline, creativity. But it wasn't like Raw where you had to kind of, Triple H and Scott Steiner or whatever, right. That was a lot more of the histrionics and not much of the in-ring, sadly. Whereas SmackDown, and that's the biggest example is those two title matches at the Rumble, in the Royal Rumble in 2003. You had Triple H and Scott Steiner, which was just an abomination of a ring match, but JR and King were able to do a lot more of the, all that stupid oiled up bodybuilding and all that kind of crap. Whereas Angle and Benoit was just two guys who wanted to be the best. One had the belt, one didn't. Pretty simple.
But even when they did have goofy stories, they were good at it because they weren't. I don't know. They would do this great mix of being kind of serious but being tongue in cheek. Like, remember all the Al Wilson stuff? Like, that shit was absurd. But Taz really, he made a lot of it watchable by just being an asshole, and he had the gravitas to pull it off because he had the legitimate kind of tough guy in ring background. So he wasn't, he was believable when he was a dick to people, you know what I mean? But he also put a lot of people over strong. I think he had a lot of that Jesse in him at this point, where he had the credibility to back it up, but he didn't take it for granted, and that he didn't joke at the expense of everyone, just the people that really deserved it. So Jesse had Sapphire, and Taz had Al Wilson. You know what I mean? Like, they had the people they could bag on, but they also worked hard to put everyone over and put everything over. So, I don't think they're forgotten, but if you don't remember how good they were, I think they made a lot of the SmackDown during kind of a downtime, especially in 2004, watchable because they were pretty solid in the booth.
Yeah, absolutely. And oh my God, he was so funny with Al Wilson when they were, when the best part, I think it was the Rumble with the the Dawn Marie and Tori stuff in the hotel, and they're together and Albus is like, stop the tape, stop it. He's like, oh, Jesus, this freaking guy. It's so great. So there you go. Gregory Helms retains his Cruiserweight Championship in a very good match against Super Crazy. All right, we get our final King of the Ring flashback moment, and it was your boy in 2000. Forgot how good forgot about the big Rikishi bruised shoulder run or bruised arm in the 2000 King of the Ring run.
Yep.
Now, to conclude Melina's very busy evening, JR.
Yes, very busy. And this, of course, plays off the stuff we mentioned earlier when it came to her. So Melina and Johnny Nitro backstage flip out on Teddy Long about everything that's gone down tonight. They lost the tag titles. Melina lost her match. They're getting screwed. Melina got hosed by the referee. And Teddy basically says, you're shit out of luck, both of you. So Melina slaps her across the face, and then Teddy fires them both to a big pop. So Melina and Nitro gone from SmackDown. Of course, we'll see where they end up. But for now, they're both out of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it has to do with their anger and frustration. And Teddy saying, go fuck yourselves. So.
Yep. Go fuck yourself. So, and obviously we'll see over the next couple of vaults, we'll see where they actually end up going. Because you're thinking, oh my God, they must be going to Raw. Well, maybe they will, and maybe they'll go somewhere else. Maybe they're leaving altogether. I'm the only one here. So, All right, next we have a pay-per-view rematch that you never thought you'd see again.
All right. What Batman was that from?
Forever. The
Was
one
the
with Val
last
Kilmer.
one?
No, that was the third one. The one with Val Kilmer.
Was that the one with Batgirl? No.
No, that was the one with Jim Carrey.
Okay.
And Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face. Figured I'd be good to hit tonight and give you a song that you actually remembered while you were in school, not preschool. So, all right. How for some reason do we serpentine back to these two in a pay-per-view match, JR?
Serpentined away. On 428, Kurt Angle was challenging Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight title. As he had Rey trapped in an ankle lock, Mark Henry interfered to draw a DQ. Henry then knocked Angle to the floor, put him on the announce table, and splashed him through it. 2 weeks later, Angle demanded a match with Henry, but Teddy Long refused because Angle was not cleared medically. Instead, he granted him a match at the pay-per-view. So there you go there. Now we head to the match. Of course, long-running feud. Angle's taking some nasty table bumps. Henry removes the monitors from the announce table before the match even starts. Angle comes out to a huge pop, still super over. Angle goes right at Henry with some punches and clubs to the back. Angle starts going at the knee and then grabs a front facelock to stop Henry from turning the tide. Henry misses a sit-down slam, and Angle kicks him hard in the face. The match spills to the floor, where Henry blocks a German to the table and pitches Angle inside. Angle grabs hold of the leg and starts to work the ankle, but Henry mows him down with a shoulder block and starts to work him over, grabbing a modified camel clutch. Angle reverses a slam attempt into a DDT. Two of them start trading heavy blows until Angle hits the German and an Angle slam for a 2 count. Henry slams down Angle, focusing on the injured ribs and getting a 2 count of his own. Angle gets an ankle lock, but Henry rolls through and whips Angle to the floor. Henry puts Angle on a table and teases a splash off another, but Angle rolls away. Henry rams Angle to the post and beats the count in for the victory. Angle attacks Henry after the match, wrecking him with a chair, putting on an ankle lock, and Angle slam onto the table that doesn't break, and then finishes him with a chair shot to the head that does smash the table, and the crowd has loved that. So I thought this was way better than the Rumble match. I thought the offense by both was much more focused, made a lot more sense. The crowd is into all of the power offense. I thought both guys look really good. I thought the finish is odd. You wouldn't think Henry would win this, but I thought it was explained well because Angle came back too soon from the ribs. That's been the whole story, and Henry was just too much for him. And they're obviously setting Henry up for another title run or, as a challenger here. So I thought it was solid. On paper, it's a confusing result, but when you know the storyline and what they're doing, like, it kind of makes sense as well, especially what they have planned for Angle. It's too bad, the news note that Sutton included in his report about Angle, kind of hurting and breaking down. Obviously, we'll see where things head. Because I think 06 is one of his best in-ring years. From a character point of view, he's locked in, he's angry, he's pissed off. He's just he's getting that top-level run character-wise that he never really got the chance to have. And he's not getting the belt fully to go with it. He did for a few months. But, to me, this is, besides, goofy comedy, fun Kurt Angle of 2000, this is wow, this is machine, kick the shit out of people, super focused, destroyer Kurt Angle. And we don't get a lot of it because he's breaking down. But I always love this era of Angle. Do I think they could have given him a better match than with Henry? Sure. But, it's decent payback from the Rumble, and the finish to me made sense. So I really liked the match. I thought it was good. The crowd was into Angle a lot. What did you think of the whole rigmarole?
Well, point one, I didn't really think we needed a rematch of this. I did enjoy the match. It was better than their Rumble match. Rumble match is atrocious. But I still don't understand why they even have to be back together in the first place. I have a lot of other theories.
Well, who else would you put Henry with? Because, they're obviously prepping him for, another top-level feud. Because don't forget, remember, he injured Batista back in the winter. So you can piece it together that they're setting him up for when Batista comes back to be, the guy Batista goes after. And then Batista's not going to dick around in the mid-card. So they're clearly building Henry up again to be a vicious destroyer of guys because he put Batista out, and now we need to be reminded of how dangerous he is before Batista comes back.
I agree with half of that. I do think that Mark Henry needed to be boosted. I just would not have put. It's kind of my Ric Flair argument from Backlash, but to a lesser extent, I would have done anybody but Kurt.
But why?
I think Kurt. I have Kurt in a better spot later in the show. Point 2. Well, 1 and 2 go together. I would have put Kurt. I'll just tell you, I would have put Kurt in the title match at the end of the night. Whether it's a triple threat or you just have Rey versus Kurt. I think he deserved his rematch.
Okay.
Because at the same time, I agree with you, Mark Henry. He does need to be pushed. I don't disagree. If they're going that route, I just wouldn't have sacrificed Angle here. I would have found some other babyface to mush him. Maybe a take a rematch. Who knows? But point 3, also with Angle, after this match, I can see where his frustrations are coming in with the company. Yes, physically, he's kind of a mess right now. But, like you said, in-ring, and even character-wise, this might be his best year since, what, 2003? Yet you feel like this is the first time it seems clearly visible that he is being put on the back burner. The first couple of times, the first few years, he's dealing with Austin and Rock and Hunter and Foley and Taker and, this glug of Hall of Fame level main event guys. Kurt was very lucky to be in that mix. Now, where the main events are a little shaky, he's still being treated like the 9th guy in the totem pole. Where you want to kind of give this guy a little more rub. I mean, he got pissed that he was the, leftover, the sloppy seconds for the world title after Batista got hurt. And then he was just nothing more than a transition to hand over to Rey. And now here he is. Well, this is your problem, not mine. So I think it was evident that he was misused here. I wouldn't say disrespected, although you could probably say that too, but he was definitely misused here. Having said that, the match itself is definitely more entertaining, and I'm not disagreeing with you on Mark Henry's push because we do have an animal that's going to be unleashed, uncaged soon, and Henry has to be set up for that. I would have found somebody else instead of Kurt and put Kurt in something a little more high profile because he was owed a world title match since he wasn't pinned at WrestleMania, and it seemed like that's forgotten. But
so would you sacrifice Benoit to Henry here?
Yeah, I would, because Benoit is bulletproof at this point, so he could go in there like a crazed lunatic, but his reputation
you don't
as
think Angle's bulletproof?
He is, but he's a main event bulletproof, and he could be more utilized at the top. Or Benoit, you could stick anywhere. Angle really needs to be in the main event right now. Benoit, you could put anywhere. And Benoit, I think, with Henry, will make Henry look great, but not make him look weak. This kind of make Kurt look weak, even with the rib situation. And I'm not saying it's illogical. I'm just saying that Kurt needed something better at the moment. And I think this is where not only his body breaking down, but his mental frustrations with the company are kind of, to use one of my favorite words, burbling to the surface, his frustrations. Sure, we have lost the great match of Finlay, yeah, but, anyway. Mark Henry wins by countout, and he looks very strong even after losing at WrestleMania. And
then you get the heat back. Angle beats the piss out of him after with the chair.
True. I just think there was a better spot for Kurt. I think I can understand his frustrations because SmackDown does not.
But I think there's a reason they did it, and the reason is Rey. We've seen him get split pops quite a bit, and JBL is about as pure of a heel as you get. So I think a big part of it has to do with that too. That they didn't want Angle. I mean, the way Ray's been going, Angle's going to get cheered probably over him in the main event. I mean, look at the pop he gets here. So,
right,
do you really?
Good point.
I mean, I get your thinking, but do you really sacrifice your world champion who's already kind of struggling, and your own fault because they've booked him like dick on SmackDown? But,
yeah.
Regardless, do you want Angle coming out and out popping your champion in the main event, which you just did all last year with Cena, or do you feed, uber heel that everyone hates and despises, JBL, and at least let Rey have that one match where he gets cheered over anyone else?
Okay. You're correct and proving my point at the same time. JBL was the better guy in that spot, and we'll get more into that later. But at the same time, because of that, you've stuck Kurt in a situation that's not really meant for him, and I can see where the frustrations are coming in. So it's a tough spot, and they have no one to blame but themselves because they made their champion look like a schlub. So Mark Henry wins by countout in a fun match. Pacing so far of this show has been very good. You had the one long match at 21 minutes, but every other match after this so far has been somewhere between 9 and 11. I don't think we've had another double-digit match until these next few. Speaking of, do we go backstage for anything? I don't think so. I think we go right into the next match. Let's see. Yeah. All right. Our next match is the finals of the aforementioned King of the Ring. Yes. And maybe finally, we talked about it over the last couple months, JR, this guy finally is getting some rewards after having to eat some various plates of shit over the last few months.
Worms. On 4-7,
worms too, yes.
On 4-7, Teddy Long announced that he's bringing back the King of the Ring tournament exclusively on SmackDown. The next week, Kurt Angle defeated Randy Orton in a first-round match. The week after, Booker advanced by beating Matt Hardy. On 4/28, Lashley defeated Mark Henry to move on. And on 5/5, the first round ended with Finlay defeating Chris Benoit. Also on 5/5, it was announced that Booker would advance to the finals due to injuries Kurt Angle had suffered at the hands of Mark Henry. On 5/12, Lashley defeated Finlay to earn a spot in the finals. And before the match, Booker came out and talked trash to Angle. And then after the bout, of course, we'll talk about that later. So, I liked this matchup. I thought bringing back King of the Ring is a good idea because if you use it right, if you deploy it right, it's useful. Doesn't work for everyone, but the potential's there. I thought it was a good spot for Booker to get back on his feet. He had the red hot winter and then to slowed him down in the spring. I think it's a good use of Lashley. It's a super push for him continues, and it seemed like a layup to me at the time that he'd win this and just continue to rise up the ranks. I mean, to me, that seemed like a no-brainer heading in here. They usually used King of the Ring to kind of crown up-and-comers. It felt very much like he was getting a bit of the Brock Lesnar push, so it felt that he would just follow in the footsteps there. Booker and Sharmell have such a great presence and chemistry, and the overall package is really becoming top-notch. Lashley's stoic monster as he enters the ring. Lashley throws Booker down to set the tone off the bell. We get a feel-out period following some power offense from Lashley. Lashley blocks a German and throws down Booker with some force. Booker uses some tricks to slow him down, going to the eyes and then some chops in the corner. Lashley cracks him with a running clothesline and then hits the post with a running shoulder charge, and that gives momentum fully to Booker. Booker goes to a strike-based offense and works a shoulder over as the crowd quiets down. Lashley punches and clotheslines back, but Sharmell distracts him so Booker can kick him in the jaw. Lashley blocks a bookend with a belly-to-belly, and then Sharmell hooks Lashley's leg, and Booker cracks him with another sidekick. Booker gets a bookend for a close near fall, and then Lashley catches Booker on a float over and hits a running power slam for a close 2 count. Booker catches Bobby Lashley with a heel kick and scissors kick after a wild charge, but only gets 2. Lashley comes back with a spear, but Sharmell hops in the ring, and Finlay shows back up again to screw Lashley, hits him with the shillelagh. Booker hits a scissors kick and wins the crown. I thought it was a good match, especially the last few minutes with all the reversals and near falls. I thought those really popped well. Booker did a nice job walking Lashley through the match. It's an upset win, but I think it's a good decision for a couple reasons, because it gives Lashley and Finlay reason to continue their feud, which has been pretty well booked. Remember, Finlay ended Lashley's undefeated streak by helping JBL beat him back in No Way Out, so now he continues to be a thorn in his side. And, of course, it gives Booker a gimmick he can really work with as a douche heel. It's already, it's made. It's ready-made. You already have Sharmell doing the Queen character anyway, so it made a lot of sense. It's a well-earned push, a win by Booker to get back where he was. Booker goes to the throne, but Lashley charges, and I thought this was really cool. He spears him through it, and I thought that was a cool bump. It kind of gives Lashley some heat back at the end. So I like this match. I like the whole package. I mean, Booker's deserved this kind of win, and Lashley's going to get over and be made regardless if he wins the tournament. Like, he doesn't really need to win it. Even though I said in the beginning it seemed tailor-made for it. I thought he was going to get over and be pushed without it. But if you can give a gimmick like this to a guy like Booker that kind of needs that hook to keep himself relevant, I thought it was a smart move. It's almost reminded me of Owen, whereas Owen is more of a breakthrough. But to give a guy like that gimmick to really let him run with it made a lot of sense to me.
All I enjoyed this match a lot, too, and I was very impressed with Lashley. Booker's here because he's getting rewarded for the plates of worms and other things that worms crawl around in, losing the U.S. title at No Way Out, and now losing to Boogie in a feud that was so stupid going into WrestleMania. And he obviously he's being rewarded from this point forward. So it was kind of a tale of two halves for Booker from here on out. So a good win for him.
Sorry, so I was thinking of when you keep saying the points.
Great ending. I had no problem with Lashley getting jobbed here due to interference. Both pay-per-view losses, as you mentioned, Finlay cheap shots. And Lashley has been booked expertly because he's been a monster force. And I've enjoyed him from the minute he came in. I've said this before, and I'll say it throughout his run in the company. He puts over his power moves. He always looks strong. The only time he looked a little clueless was in that Money in the Bank at 22.
Right.
I think he wasn't quite sure how to handle it.
I would have left him out of that, I think. That's the only thing I definitely would have changed.
Yeah. And I think here he, again, really strong against Booker, and then again loses because Finlay just keeps getting in the way.
Yeah, I like that the angry veteran keeps screwing the young guy, you know?
Yes, like he's getting ribbed almost. Yeah. So,
or just the old guy that's just like, fuck you, you know? Like, you're not coming in here and winning all this shit. You got to beat me first, you know?
Right. But any event, Booker T gets the win. He is the king of the ring, but Bobby Lashley looks fantastic. Gets a spot in the tournament that he deserved, and then again gets his heat back by that vicious. I mean, that was great.
Yeah, that was a cool spot
up top. That was fantastic. So good job by both guys, and Booker begins a great last 7 months of 2006. It's probably the best run of his WWE career since coming in 2001. I don't think he's looked better.
Oh, definitely not.
Than from this point forward. So
I mean, you could say the stuff with like Goldust was entertaining, but from a pure like across the board as a quality competitor, yes, this is his best since his early debut in mid 01 when he injured Austin, and then when he was feuding with The Rock and everything. So yeah, since then, outside of maybe that little brief stretch of mid 02 with Goldust and Book Dust was good in the ring too. I guess as a solo guy, this is his second best run. Book Dust is up there too. Those are probably his top 3 periods.
Yeah, that was good. In the mid card, and it kind of helped Goldust kind of come back and be strong as well. But here, definitely from this point forward, he's booked incredibly strong. And for a roster that's a little thin, he's definitely becoming will become a saving grace. So Booker T is your 2006 King of the Ring, our first King of the Ring since we mentioned Brock Lesnar in 2002. But not our last King of the Ring. We'll have a couple more of them down the line. All right, why don't we take a break? Definitely a better show than Backlash. Definitely. Better than No Way Out so far?
I don't remember.
Probably. It probably was.
No, I thought we liked No Way Out.
Yeah, Booker and Benoit was good. But a good show. Good show. Definitely better than Backlash. When we come back, 2 matches left. The Dead Man will make his customary SmackDown appearance and our World Heavyweight Championship match. But first, many words. Because?
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
What's up, everybody? This is Kevin Kelly. Make sure you check out every episode of The Kevin Kelly Show right here on the Place to Be Nation. PlaceToBeNation.com. The Kevin Kelly Show. Every episode is a winner. At least we hope.
Place for Nation's Justin Rosero here. In addition to the Kevin Kelly Show, we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes and PlaceToBeNation.com. You can check out Scott Criscullo and me on the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, with our famous Vintage Vault pay-per-view reviews. PTBN also covers current day wrestling with Main Event, Mission Indie Possible, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows with immediate feedback on WWE, NXT, and Ring of Honor Super Shows. And relive wrestling's past with our monthly pay-per-view rewind series, led by Ben Morse, and the Dangerous Alliance Wrestling podcast as we dive into various subjects in the form of exercises and games. We got sports covered too with the Sports Evolution Mega Show with Scott, Dr. G, Cowboy, and Cowboy Sr., the Kings of Sport led by Live Audio Wrestling's Godfather Nate Milton, as well as the NBA Team Podcast and the TJ McClune Show. PTBN tackles pop culture and irreverence with Richard and the Mailman, the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, and if you like a hybrid of all of this in list form, check out Jordan Duncan's Rank and File. All of these shows are available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus tournaments and more. We want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island and Fall River, Massachusetts, and Scott Keith's Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
This is Parv, and I'm here to tell you to listen and subscribe to the Pro Wrestling Only Place to Be Nation podcast network. That's the PWO PTBN podcast network, where you'll find a ton of in-depth shows done by hardcore fans. We've got Chris Zellner's 1-2 punch of Exile on Bad Street, and with David Bixenspan, a smash hit Between the Sheets. We've got Wrestling Culture with Dylan Hales and Dave Musgrave, Goodwill Wrestling and the reaction shows with Good Old Will from Texas. We got This Week in Wrestling with my man Pete and Johnny Sorrow, Stephen Graham and Tim Livingston's Pro Wrestling Super Show, Tag Teams Back Again with Kelly and Marty Sleaze, and a ton of other great shows too. And of course there's Titans of Wrestling and Where the Big Boys Play with yours truly and some dude from down south called Chad. PWO PTBN Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody. This is Bruno Lauer. I'm on The Place to Be. You're listening to The Place to Be podcast. You know why? Because it's like Mama says, it be that way sometimes.
Here comes the axe, and here comes the smasher, the demolition, walking disaster, pain and destruction is our middle name. Step by step, ooh baby, gonna get to you, girl. Step by step.
All right, Nation, we are back here inside the Vintage Vault, looking at PlaceToBeNation.com before we get back into Judgment Day 06. Of course, today, Scotty, was the 75th birthday of the legendary Bob Dylan. So, to celebrate that, we re-socialized out Parv's guide to Bob Dylan's album. So if you haven't read that, it is a monstrosity of a piece, but it's very well received. He breaks down and goes through every single Bob Dylan album in great
one of our first big articles.
Yes, in great Parv-like detail. And you know what Parv detail is, all you people that are aware of Parv in Place Nation. Very, very detailed. It goes very in-depth on everything he does. So if you're a Dylan fan, be sure to search it out, and you can do so in the brand new PlaceToBeNation.com index. It is linked at the very top if you go to the toolbar. If you click index, Scott, it brings you to a page that has every single podcast and written piece that we've done since the inception of this site 3 years ago linked on one page. So you can scroll to the page, you can do a search, you can find for stuff, you can just scroll through and pick things at random. It lists the name of the piece / podcast. Of course, if it's a podcast, it's marked by audio, and it also has the author of every piece. So, and then they're all linked. So you can search through the index, PlaceToBeNation.com, click index at the top. So if you want to find that Bob Dylan piece, you can go to the index, Control F, search Bob Dylan, and it'll come up for you. So be sure to check that out. Of course, also want to call attention to Stephen Riddle. He did his Vintage Vault previewing for the opener that we talked about tonight. That was Eminem versus London and Kendrick. So be sure to check that out. We had Brian Bayless's Raw Rundown from last night, the post Extreme Rules episode of Raw. And of course, you can listen to our Extreme Rules reaction show, Good Old Will and the Crew. You can listen to them talk. He was joined by our boy Zellner, the Hales brothers, and Johnny Sorrow to break down the show. Of course, Scott Keith's rant is up as well. So plenty of Extreme Rules coverage for you at PTBN. New episode of Between the Sheets with Chris and Bix, joined by Keith Harris from Cage Side Seats, looking at the May 17th to 23rd edition of 1991. They talk about something that timed out very well with us, Scott, the end of Saturday Night's Main Event on NBC. And the reason that times out well is because we also today posted our interval refresh for that episode of Saturday's Main Event from April 27th, 91. So
right.
A lot of nice cohesion there. Between the Sheets, you can read our review of that episode of Saturday's Main Event and listen to Between the Sheets as well as they talk about it. Also talk about the end of Bruce Pritchard and the WWF, Ultimate Warrior as a male prostitute, and much more. So be sure to check that all out. Our Seinfeld rewatch series continues with The Gum. We're about halfway through season 7. Check that out. Chad Campbell looked at the New Japan Best of the Super Juniors Day 1 review. So if you're into New Japan and the BOSJ tournament, be sure to check out his piece. A new Hard Traveling Fanboys podcast looking at Civil War. You know more about that than I would, Scott, but of course getting a lot of anticipation, love, and praise around the internet parts.
Yes.
And new Where the Big Boys Play, looking at Clash 21. It's always a great day when that's out. Last week, Scott, was Andre the Giant. Would have been his 70th birthday. I whipped up a little bit of a piece on his lost 1991 WWF comeback. Of course, he was supposed to be in the Royal Rumble and maybe teaming with Jake the Snake, and he did some work in Japan and Mexico. So lots of cool stuff there. I recommend if you want to check out some of Andre's final days when it came to in-ring action. You can check out that piece that's up now. So lots going on. PlayStation.com. Of course, a brand new We Missed the 90s as well. Myself and Chris Jordan looked at the movie Mallrats. So that and more. Check out the index, like I mentioned. Tumblr, Instagram, PlaceMeNation on Facebook, Facebook.com/PlaceMeNation, place number 2BNation on Twitter. And, of course, all our email information is at the PlaceMeNation website as well. So be sure to check it out. And always click that Amazon link before you go shopping on Amazon.com.
I did today.
There you go. Give us a little kickback before you do your graduation and communion shopping as well.
Yes.
St. Chester Day.
I would agree. That was a D'Amato I was talking to about St. Chester.
No, St. Chester. A lot of whores.
St. Chester. A lot of whores. All right.
I'm going to see Mr. D'Amato this weekend. Very excited.
Yes, I am very excited. It'll be 3 times in like 9 days.
Is Armento Balboa coming?
Armento Balboa is coming. Yes, he is.
All right.
It's going to be a great motley crew. So let's head back to Phoenix for Judgment Day 2006. And we have a debut here, JR, which leads to the first of a multi-match feud. Somewhat kind of out of nowhere. It actually harkens back to Old School Taker. Why is that?
Sure. Dalip Singh was a former Mr. India and police officer before traveling to the U.S. to train to become a wrestler. His time in APW, though, was not without controversy when fellow trainee Brian Onge passed away after taking a flapjack from Singh. Despite having delivered the move, Khali, or as he was known at the time, Dalip Singh, wasn't found at fault, as the trainers had incorrectly cleared Onge to return to the ring after suffering a concussion prior to his tussle. After training at APW, he traveled to New Japan, where he began teaming with former WWF oddity Giant Silva. Remember him? Singh would sign a developmental deal in January and trained in Deep South Wrestling until April, when he debuted as the Great Khali. And, of course, Sutton also has some notes. Early in the training session, Onge suffered a concussion during the session, evaluated by trainers and told to continue training. The second concussion would become fatal. Singh's action was the cause of death. Onge's family sued APW and awarded the family's favor $1.3 million for the promotion. So, like we said, head injuries treated a lot differently even just 10 years ago, Scott.
Yep.
And, of course, the tragic passing there. On 4/7, Undertaker was wrestling Mark Henry when Daivari returned, appeared with the Giant debuting Khali, marched into the ring, shook off Taker's strikes, drilled him with a series of headbutts, and dropped him with a boot to the face. Khali made his in-ring debut 2 weeks later, easily defeating Funaki. On 5/5, Teddy Long handed Khali a signed contract from Undertaker for a pay-per-view match, which Khali would accept. On 5/12, Khali's mega push would continue as he quickly dispatched of Rey Mysterio in a non-title match, and that was a huge controversy. Rey was already being booked like a jackass week to week, and then you have this guy come out and he like squashed Rey and pinned him clean with 1 foot on his chest, and people were just like, what the fuck? Like, it was clear that they didn't think much of Rey as champion, and they were treating him as such. I mean, maybe they get so few chances to bury their champion that they felt like they wanted to take advantage, but Khali getting one hell of a push. So we get another monster to fight Taker, but big things are obviously planned. Part of this was to help build a name and cross over into India. Of course, Khali, very popular over there. Daivari was paired with Khali, who wiped out Taker on SmackDown. Khali has an imposing look worth a shot, I figured. Try and find another unique attraction. Taker gets his usual entrance, and kind of interesting to see how they use him here. Opens with a stare down to show off Khali's height. Khali dominates right away, clobbering Taker and pitching him to the floor with ease. Taker snaps Khali's neck over the ropes for his first offense and then starts to stick and move. Khali blocks the old school with a slam off the top, and the crowd is just eating up the spectacle here of Khali thwarting Taker left and right. Taker elbows his way into things on the floor, and the crowd is into every move he's landing now. Khali shoots Taker into the ring, or into the steps, rather, into the ring steps, and Daivari lands some kicks as well. Khali slams Taker and chops him across the skull to get a near fall, and I actually thought that was it. Taker uses his strikes again and then connects on old school this time, and it looks like he's going to make his comeback here, Scott, and get the win. The crowd sure felt that way as well. Taker whiffs on a flying clothesline with Khali out of position. Khali tumbles back and gets tied in the ropes. Taker hammers away, but Daivari frees him. Taker tries for a choke slam, but Khali elbows out of it, hits a big boot, and chops and kicks Taker to the head, and beats him clean with 1 foot pin on top of Taker's chest. Massive upset, massive shock. I thought this would have been more effective if it was a better finisher, instead of the way they did it. That just kind of looks goofy, that chop and kick. But it's a statement win for a guy they saw a lot of promise for. I'll never blame them for taking a shot and making a guy like this a star, and good on Taker to put him over. The crowd was really hot the whole match for Taker. I don't think they ever expected this finish, and they go completely hushed and died off. The match is plotty. If anything, it's a spectacle thanks to the crowd and Khali's presence. Talk about the match, and then I want to pose a question to you.
Sure.
Okay.
Point one. Mm-hmm. Good use of both guys in this in between time of the year where you're out of your WrestleMania stuff and you're setting up your SummerSlam stuff. This is a tremendous use of both guys. Good feud. Taker's a perfect guy to kind of test this big gargantuan guy. It's kind of a similar case like Mr. Giante in his turn, 15 years or 13 years earlier. So I was perfectly fine putting these two together, regardless of how the match was going to look. Point two, as you mentioned, maybe even more than the Orton feud, Taker's just crazy over. I mean, Taker chants and everything. I don't remember a lot of that even during the Orton feud, where there were actually chants and stuff, and absolutely not.
Fuck you!
I don't know. There might be a case of Khali maybe having more women in Bombay, which is actually not called Bombay. Sorry, Gorilla's never been to Bombay. I don't even know it's not called Bombay anymore. It's what is it? I don't remember what it's called now. But yeah, I mean, crazy over. More over than maybe any of his other feuds since Orton. Crazy. And number three. Been a long time since Taker's actually faced somebody bigger than him. And I applaud Taker for kind of working the match as such. He's not used to this. It's been a long time since he's had to face a guy like a Giante or a Mabel or whatever, Bundy. I mean, when was the last really tall guy feud he had? Heidenreich, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say Heidenreich.
Yeah, so
he's now wrestling in. Did you see that? It was oh my God, what the hell was it? It was some parking lot, not a Carl Jr. I'm so serious. He fought Doink in a parking lot of some fast food. I'll find it. It's ridiculous.
It's kind of like the old days when a rest.
And Doink looks like awful.
I thought that. Well, obviously we should report Mr. McDevitt that because aren't they like?
No one's. It was actually from 2008. It was Alabama Wrestling Federation in Lucedale, Mississippi, at the Georgia County Fairgrounds. Let's see.
I thought it was yesterday.
No, I think this is the one. No, actually, hang on. This is not the one. There might be a rematch. Let me see if I can find the rematch.
A rematch.
Well, the one I saw today was him. It was outside in a parking lot.
That is ludicrous. Anyway, Taker hasn't had to wrestle a guy like this in a while. It's almost easy for him because he may have to bump more, but
Golden Corral.
Seriously?
Yes. Just good mood food.
Win the match, free meatloaf.
May 21st. It just happened. Heidenreich
So
versus
what's the
Doink.
day?
And the Doink is awful. It's like he's not face painted. He's wearing like a lucha mask, and he's like 90 pounds overweight, easy.
Kind of like the Doink we saw at John's show.
It's a real shit show. There's a big like Charlie's sign in the background. It's awful. They're literally in a Golden Corral. I'll put the link in for the show. They're literally in the Golden Corral parking lot.
I'll have to watch that later. That is tremendous. It can't be as bad as that Doink. What is the AWF? It's so bad.
Alabama Wrestling Federation.
Yeah. All right. So anyway,
I kind of wish Heyman was with them.
It would be pretty funny.
My client will be eating a double Whopper with cheese, or whatever the hell they call it. I never been to Golden Corral.
It's a buffet. My client will be eating tons of meatloaf before this match.
After my client defeats the clown, he'll be eating all-you-can-eat shrimp at the buffet after the show. It is. I mean, Doink is like. I mean, it's absurd. Like it's just, and Heidenreich kind of looks like nails. It's a must-watch. They actually fight into traffic and like block traffic, and there's just all people standing outside. And it looks like it's like HD quality. I don't know who the hell they was filming this, but
what the hell is Charlie's? What is that? An auto garage or something?
I don't know. It's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. We might have to do a live watch of this match.
What is with this Doink?
Right? He looks awful.
What is he, a cashier?
It's awful.
This is atrocious. Heidenreich doesn't look.
Oh my God!
Heidenreich looks like DDP.
Last time we'll talk about this because it's not good radio. But go to 2030 and look at Doink bending over to pick up Heidenreich and this gut he has going on.
2030. Okay, here we go. All right. He looks awful.
It makes our buddy Adam Bloom blush. That's how bad he looks here.
All right, here we go. 2030. He's giving him a front face lock now.
Yeah, but just look at him bending over that gut.
Oh my God. Oh my God, look at
flattering.
him. Oh God.
Not flattering in that Doink.
Oh God's gonna even fit that thing.
I mean, look, if you're gonna be a big guy, whatever, but I wouldn't wear those. I wouldn't wear that outfit when I'm doing it.
Like he looks like sausage casing.
It's awful.
Oh my God. Fucking Heidenreich. God, he looks like Rosie.
Yeah, it's
this is not good. This isn't like the days
apparently
when
it's a feud because they had that match in 08 and then they fought again here. But
yes. Did he look the same in 08? This guy must have come out after the Golden. He must have come from
right. Yeah, he cleared out the Golden Corral when he came out.
I just ate all meatloaf. Oh my God. Okay, Greg Khali was in better shape than this Doink. Oh God, it's terrible.
Well, the good thing is he can double up with the circus, do the clown act, and then go over to the guess your weight. Just hop right over on the scale.
Try and hit the bell, the hammer on the bell with him sitting there. Bing! Oh God, I might have to link that to the bottom of the.
My client tipped 23% at the Golden Corral earlier tonight.
Yes, he ate those mango habanero wings. Anyway. So Khali and Taker, a very unique match because Taker hasn't wrestled a guy like this in a long time, and it's unique. It's unique to see. It's a different kind of thing. It's kind of a novelty actually to have Taker face a guy like that. Like Big Show doesn't really count. This is just different because this guy's just massive. I mean, Khali is just so tall. He might be about the same height as Giante. He's not the same size as this Doink, though. So Greg Khali gets the win. I can't believe Taker. I'll be honest with you. This might be my fourth point. I can't believe Taker allowed himself to be pinned with a foot on his chest. I mean, it's a secondary pay-per-view. It's not like Mania or anything, but still, I would never have thought that he would have gone for that. I'm stunned. But the Great Khali gets the win.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they must have told him, look, we got this guy, and we're pushing him big, hard, fast. And, we're letting him beat our champion. Now he's going to be
Doink attack the pot roast.
Well, so here's my question to you, because you said in your first point that you thought this is a perfect use of both men, right? Mm-hmm. Good challenge. Taker puts him over. Great use. We also spent about 20 minutes on our last show discussing the usage of Ric Flair in a similar situation. So, Scott, I want to know from you, What is the difference between Ric Flair laying down for Umaga, a guy they have big plans for, a good test, a monster, and yeah, he didn't get as much offense in, but he took a beating and got pinned, versus a guy like Undertaker, who, in WWF legend, you could argue is a bigger deal than Flair, just in WWE lore alone, not obviously all time. Parv, sit down. Jobbing to Khali to a chop to the head, clean with 1 foot on his chest. So I want to know the difference between you thinking, besides just you being a Flair fanboy, what is the difference between the way Flair was used against Umaga and the way Undertaker was used against Khali?
Okay. Number one, Taker's still active, and this feud's going to continue, and Taker will get a win back.
So let me
This is not a
to you.
spot.
Let me pose this.
Okay.
Doesn't it make it worse if Undertaker's still active to get jobbed like this? Whereas Flair, to me, is in the what's the opposite of salad? Dessert days of his career.
Dessert. He's in the Golden Corral days of his career.
He's at the dessert station of the Golden Corral. Where he's in a better position to be used for stuff like that. Whereas Taker's kind of somehow at the tail end of his prime still.
Because this is a feud, and Taker's going to get something back out of this. Flair was just a sacrificial lamb to put Umaga over for somebody else.
Do we know that?
Flair was just out there to
and
get
Undertaker
spots.
Khali wasn't really a feud.
Well, it is. Wait, say that again. What if it wasn't a feud?
Why?
Is that
Does
what
it
you're saying?
continue? Are they supposed to continue? I thought the whole thing is screwed up.
No, I thought this was a feud. Why would this have been a one-shot? That makes no sense.
Yeah, I guess so.
It had to have been a feud.
So doesn't that make it worse that you blow a Taker getting pinned clean with 1 foot, then he gets his win back 2 months later anyway?
But that's the point of a feud. And
Taker, you're wasting a major win on a guy like Taker. To me, it makes more sense. If you're going to destroy a legend and pin him like you did, clean with 1 foot, he shouldn't get his win back a month later. That guy should be going to challenge for the world title.
I agree.
Okay, so to me, Umaga destroying Flair without it being a feud makes more sense. To me, if Khali's going to destroy Undertaker and then lose 2 months later, like, what's the point?
Because
to sell 2 months worth, to sell one show, or to make Khali a threat? Because you're already blowing it now. You're already having him lose 2 months later, like you're saying. I'm not even sure he was going to lose, but whatever. We'll go with it.
Maybe he wasn't. I mean, we'll never know. Sadly, this as great a debate as this is, it's hard to really have a viable solution because what was supposed to be an ending never actually happens.
All right, well, it's not a viable solution. So, I mean, there is one. So, if you're booking this and you're in charge and you're given these options, you're arguing the Flair one, but you're saying this works for you.
I probably would not have had Taker in the spot if it was a one shot. No. If it was a one shot, no, I would not have done it.
So even if you're prepping Khali for really big things, you don't think this makes sense? I thought it made him feel like a monster. Like, I thought it was awesome. I mean, he kills him, and I'm not saying Khali's awesome. I'm not saying the match was awesome. But the moment of Khali destroying Taker that no one's ever really done, and then pins him clean in the match with 1 foot, like, there's your star, now run with it. I would have had him beat Rey again for the title. I mean, you've already gone this far, right?
Right.
Why not go all the way?
Then what do you do with Taker at this point? You might as well have him never...
maybe eventually he comes back, but strike. Let Khali... It doesn't hurt Taker if you build Khali accurately. This is my point. If you just beat him 2 months later, then what was the point of going through this and having Khali destroy Taker with 1 foot on his chest? It would have been like if Hogan... So let me pose this to you. In 2002, it's like comparing Hogan and Brock Lesnar, right? So that's not one we didn't discuss when we had this debate last show.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like Hogan a month... what he wanted to do, what we laughed at the time, was Hogan go over Brock Lesnar Survivor Series, right? That's what Hogan wanted. Vince told him to go fuck. So that's kind of what you're proposing here.
What, that Taker should have won? No.
You're saying Taker should have... It's fine because Taker was going to beat him in the rematch. So doesn't that defeat the purpose? If Hogan beat Brock Lesnar Survivor Series, doesn't that diminish Brock Lesnar?
Well, you could have had him... You could have rebuilt Taker to another match...
Down the road.
My point is,
Khali win the belt. Follow that Brock Lesnar template. Lesnar destroys Hogan, wins a title, and then if you want to build up Hogan for a rematch down the line, maybe you do that.
Sure.
But the way they were doing it here was Khali destroys Taker, and then 2 months later, Taker's primed to get his win back.
Well,
so
that
what's
part's
the point of doing it?
Well, that part's wrong.
Yeah, but you're saying that's why you would have allowed it.
No, what I'm saying is the fundamental difference is you can have Taker get squashed if he's still active and he could rebuild it down the line for something else, whereas Flair is just there so Umaga could beat the shit out of him, and then that's it. He's done. He's like a bag of...
He's not done. He's still around. He's still doing shit.
Yeah, but he's not
being built the same way.
But it's not the same thing as Taker, though. Taker in 2006 is not Flair 2006. Taker 2006...
You're right. There's less of an argument he should lay down. Flair is 100% should lay down. You're right. But there is a difference.
But the Flair thing is a one-shot deal just to put Umaga over for somebody.
Exactly, and that's what it should be.
And that's wrong. Whereas Taker is still active. He's still viable. And unfortunately, we don't know what would have happened in the future. Now, we can continue part 2 of this debate when we get to the next SmackDown pay-per-view, but we all know what happens at that pay-per-view. It's very infamous for a lot of reasons. And I will contend that the same thing would have happened at that show. Kind of like Triple H and Batista a year before.
So you think Khali would have killed Taker again?
I don't know if he would have killed him, but I think Taker would have been built up.
But in your mind, unless Taker gets the win back and gets rebuilt, it's wrong.
No, he doesn't have to win again if that's not the path they were taking. But it's a feud as compared to a one-shot jobber squash, which is how Umaga and Flair was
should have been booked.
Selected. That's the difference.
Accurately booked.
Because Flair's just some piece of shit like Barry O.
In 2006.
The way you're comparing him to.
In 2006.
Guy who's won 16 championships and will eventually be in the Hall of Fame and is arguably one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. It's okay to treat him like Barry O because it's fucking Umaga. Some fat Samoan guy that we don't know what's going to come of him.
Come on. Because he's won 16 titles. That's your rationale?
That's one of the rationales. Yeah. Why are you discrediting his history? I don't understand why it's pissing you off so much that he's got...
Because it's not real. He didn't really win 16 titles. I mean, he was booked to win 16. He's great. He's the greatest of all time, arguably.
You sound like Lawler when Flair came back in 01. He's great and everything. He's Ric Flair.
Sure, he's great. That doesn't mean he's immune to laying down like every other star before him, like Harley Race did for him.
Oh my God, really? No way. Two totally different things. Now you're just trying to stoke the fire. Two completely different things. My point is, Taker, it's different. I guess the fundamental difference here is you're talking about a one-shot squash versus putting a guy over for a long-term feud that should end with the babyface winning. Eventually.
Yeah, but that to me, that defeats the purpose.
You make Khali bulletproof enough.
Khali should have destroyed Undertaker and then won the title. I'm not saying this as a Khali backer. Like, I'm not saying the guy you put in this position should have been pushed as such. He destroyed Rey in a non-title match, beat Taker, and then I would have had him to smash Rey the next week on SmackDown and be your champion. You may as well just do it if you're going to do this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just think you're holding Ric Flair to some kind of reverent high that he just wasn't in 2006. I'm sorry. He just wasn't. And it was partially his own fault for still hanging around at that point. You can't be that age and in that kind of position and shape and not, be expected to do what he did. And I don't think he had a problem with it. You have a bigger problem with it than he did, apparently. But
he should have had a bigger problem with it, I'll be honest with you.
No, then he should have retired if he was so worried about his legacy being destroyed.
I'm not disagreeing
He should have been done in 01.
Yeah, he should have been done in 01.
Maybe a match here or there.
Maybe in 04.
No.
Because he wasn't wrestling a lot, and he was part of a...
He should have been done in 01, except for maybe like 2 matches a year, like Vince or something.
Right.
If you want to be an active every week wrestler at age 50, whatever, you're going to have to put guys over.
But Taker getting squashed here, and then booking Khali to win the title and look strong for months and months, and then Taker gets the win back like 6 or 7 months later, is not the same as throwing Ric Flair out there to get murdered.
Who's to say Flair can't get a win back way down the road?
But that was never their plan.
Right, because he's old and washed up, and Taker's still in his prime. So, there you go. It's asinine, right? When I said it, it sounded fucking stupid, didn't it to you? When I said Ric Flair can get his win back in Umaga 5 months later, 6 months later?
But that wasn't their plan.
Does it sound stupid when I say it?
What, that Ric Flair could get his win back?
On Umaga.
Well, he beat Vader.
Oh, my God. In 1993, he beat Vader.
He could have been washed up in 93. Jim Herd thought he was.
Yeah, he probably was. But you know what? He hung on.
Where's Bix? I want to read those St. Louis contracts now.
Bix would tell you you're a fucking moron right now. That's what I'll tell you.
No, he's going to tell me that you're just discrediting history. That's all.
No, I'm honoring history, and I'm saying if Flair should have done the same if he didn't want to be jobbing in 2006. It sounds stupid, though. You can't even debate it, that Flair beating Umaga in the fall of 06 is dumb.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. Let's go on to our main event.
If he cheated,
all right,
which is what he's great at, could have hit him with in the head with
the
a thing.
The only thing that's cheating is you on him with Triple H. So let's go. Main event time.
I don't know why this bothers you so much. Just accept the point and move on.
I don't
Part 2 of this pay-per-view of this vault to keep shoving that in my face.
Well, when I saw the finish, I'm like, this is perfect. 2 months in a row, we got the same debate. It was perfect.
It's two different people.
We'll do it again with Balls Mahoney next month.
He shouldn't have been with that woman. Oh, God. All right. Time for our main event. Another guy who shouldn't have been in this. Neither person should have been in this match, if you really think about it. Our World Heavyweight Champion, who won it emotionally at WrestleMania. Does he have a number one contender? Is there anybody worthy on this roster?
Is he worthy?
Well, that's even the same thing. What is the story telling from there to here?
On 4/21, JBL had a celebration honoring his WrestleMania U.S. title win and a Steel Cage rematch victory the week before. During the segment, JBL issued a challenge to the winner of the title match between Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle that was coming the next week. Angle would win the match by DQ, so Mysterio retained his title, and the pay-per-view title match was set. On 5/5, Mysterio claimed that he would take on any challenger, so JBL brought out Mark Henry to face the champion, and Scott Henry pinned Mysterio clean in the main event. In the following week, JBL told Mysterio he'd face the Great Khali, and Mysterio once again lost clean. During these weeks, JBL also continued to rip on Mysterio on the mic, burying him and making racist remarks towards Mexicans and Rey's family. On 5/19, Kane came over from Raw to face Mysterio. After Kane's May 19th torture continued, the match ended in no contest after Kane dropped JBL with a choke slam. So before we get to the match, what are your thoughts on the booking and the handling of Rey Mysterio coming into this match? I remember, the internet was appalled. I remember this is the very early days that I was getting into listening to podcasts, and I think it was called the Smart Marks podcast, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I had just gotten into it, and they were just ripping it week to week what was going on. Regardless of what you think of Rey as champion, if he should be champion, is he valuable champion?
Mm-hmm.
Why treat your world champion in a matter of... I mean, I know he's outmatched, and the story is, well, he's fighting these monsters. It just makes him in the title look so weak.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to put over Khali, that's one thing. But to have him basically lose 3 weeks in a row, heading into a pay-per-view title match, and it's not even against a guy that you want to see win, so you can't even say, this gives me hope that Rey's beatable. Because no one wants to see JBL win. So maybe this is where your Angle thing comes into play. If he's fighting Angle here and people want to see Angle win, you can say, well, Rey's beatable. But I don't know. It just seems super counterproductive. I mean, even if you don't think he's a viable champion, why have him lose so much and mean nothing when he eventually loses anyway for the belt? At least give him some wins. It felt really weird.
It was very weird.
They've never handled a champion like this.
No sense whatsoever. I get that this was not the original plan. I get that. But don't prove to everyone that it wasn't the original plan. At least keep the fourth wall up a little bit. It's almost like, all right, you'll get your stupid win in Chicago. No one's going to remember or give two shits anyway. And then the next night, we're going to do what we're going to do, which is, treat you like fucking garbage because you really don't deserve it anyway. But since Eddie's dead and everybody's all up in arms about it, then we'll just make you champ so everybody could cheer and then move on to the next thing. If that was their plan, fine. But don't be so blatant about it, so obnoxious about it. Maybe the Great Khali push was going too far.
Right.
You take two guys, your world champion and one of the greatest of all time, and those
I'm
endings
okay with the Khali push. I'm okay with it.
No, the push is fine.
I wouldn't have had him beat Rey. I would have had him just beat the shit out of Rey and tease that he could beat him.
Yeah.
I would have had him attack Rey and then put his foot on his chest and say, wow, he could beat him.
You could contend that they could have done the same thing with the Taker match, too. He's going to win at some point. Obviously, there's something there with him. Maybe it's the short shelf life. I don't know if the rumors were bounding. I don't know if at the time his knees were in, because, I mean, within a matter of, 2 years, his knees are shot. So obviously he had a very short shelf life as a in-ring performer, and they were trying to get as much out of him as possible, similar, arguably, to what WCW did with El Gigante in 1991. I don't know what kind of future this guy has. He has zero wrestling ability. He could pick up lots of hot women in Buenos Aires, but I don't know what kind of wrestler we're going to make him. Let's do our best. The difference between Khali and Gigante is that, they booked him like utter... they didn't overly book him strong in 91. But they probably went overdrive on Khali because Vince probably said, here's this big, gigantic guy. I don't know how much time he has as a performer, and maybe his knees are shot or whatever happened, because it seemed like his body broke down fairly quickly after this, within, 2.5 years. So you could contend that, yeah, they went a little too far with the Khali push. Putting your foot on your world champion and your top two baby faces. You, in essence, had this guy squash clean your top two baby faces.
Right. Which I think is fine. If you're going to get behind him. It's just having Rey lose again and then basically lose to Kane kind of again.
Yeah, after losing to Mark Henry.
Right. I mean, the Khali thing I kind of get, but...
I do and I don't, but at least in terms of results.
Right.
I mean, if we could talk about, 50-50 wins and losses, but...
Right. He's the worst book champion to date.
Easily.
Easily. Yeah.
And the only thing...
Stan Stasiak had a better run.
Yeah. And honestly, I know I mentioned earlier about Kurt. The only thing that detracts from my theory is you put Kurt in this match and Rey's fucked. Right. You might as well just lose here. You know what I mean? After booking him like utter trash for, 6 weeks, you put him with a guy that the fans love, and you might as well just have him lose the title and then quit the next day. Go to AAA or CMLL or wherever he was in Mexico, because it's not even worth it.
Right, and I think that's why they didn't do something like that. I think that's why they put him in with a pure heel that everyone hated.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just contended that I wish Kurt was given a better fate. But logically, you had to do this. I understand that. You had to do this. Because there's no other heel. There's no 50. He's one of the few non-50-50 guys on the roster. You just 100% hate him. The Marks hate him because he's just a heel. And then the Smarks hate him because we're sick and tired of him. He's obviously not going to the gym. And he doesn't deserve main events anymore. So stop putting him in them. So I get no kick from Ukraine. And how is your sisters tonight? No, my sister's at Golden Corral with Doink.
Rosati sisters.
Yes.
The motto and the Rosatis at
the Golden Corral with.
Hey, I'm paying for all these broads.
All these dames. No, the lights are hot. It smells like bacon. So I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking, and if they were that hard up about just totally burying him. I mean, if I was Rey, what would I be thinking? Oh, thanks for the win at Mania, guys. Means shit now, but on the other hand, the glad handing just didn't stop. You almost wanted him to get the shit beat.
Oh, I know. That's it.
It's
a real conundrum. I mean, it really is, because it sucks because Rey, all-time great, legend, beloved. And then he's just stuck in this muck of, his big world title win finally arrives, and he's got this awful storyline. Everyone hates him. He's, glomming on to Eddie. He's getting squashed left and right. It's such a weight. It's almost like you just want to lose the belt so he can get out of it and breathe a little bit. He's just stuck in this awful quagmire of bullshit. It's just, I don't know. It sucks that his big world title, his main world title run, his first one of his career, in America goes this way, where he's just looks like a doofus and everyone can't stand him because of the way he's been booked.
It's ridiculous. It really is. Really is. So, you can do your analysis. Where is paradise? Where Ric Flair never loses ever, even when he's dead.
Not here. JBL has been rehabbed and built up since the winter, like we mentioned, to be in a position just for something like this. Kind of the final guardian of the main event gate in the way of Rey to kind of take over the brand. And I feel like we mentioned earlier, Scott, this match is like a vacuum compared to everything else that's going on.
I know. It's crazy.
If you just watch the pay-per-view and none of the TV, you're like, oh, man, Rey's having a great run. He's being set up. He's going to knock off JBL, kind of like, Batista did. It feels like that where JBL doesn't really feel like he has a chance, but Rey's got to kind of beat him like Batista did to move on and take over the brand. And, it feels like that a lot. And then when you look at what's going on week to week, it's like this is the same guy, getting just drubbed left and right.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. JBL's in rough physical shape, both looking at him here and just knowing his back really hurting. So we get a big pop for Rey. Taz wonders if Rey's busy schedule of defenses will cost him here. JBL tries to bully Rey early, but Rey comes back with quick strikes to rattle JBL, including a stiff kick. JBL comes back with clubbing strikes and rolls to the floor to avoid a 619. Rey hits a baseball slide and seated senton off the apron to the floor. Rey gets near fall back in the ring and keeps peppering JBL with quick strikes and leg drops. Rey hits a sliding dropkick low blow as JBL seated in the corner. JBL dodges another baseball slide on the floor and kicks Rey down and whips him to the steps. JBL slows things down and unleashes his bullying offense in and out of the ring, does the Three Amigos and mocks Eddie as the crowd starts to boo him more. Rey gets busted open under his mask, which you don't really see a lot of. I thought that was really cool. JBL hangs him on the top rope and then kicks him down to the floor. I think we start to get some good drama here. As bloodied Rey is wiped out, his wife is crying at ringside. Rey beats a 10 count to his feet and survives the boot to the face. JBL hooks on a tight sleeper but releases to cover and Rey kicks out. Rey hits a top rope moonsault and gets kicked in the head for 2. Rey hits a 619, but JBL yanks the refs in between them and he gets bumped. JBL powerbombs Rey and calls out another ref, but only gets a 2 count, and the crowd's really hot at this point, really into everything. JBL slugs down the new referee and grabs a chair, but Rey kicks it into his face, hits a 619, and the top rope big splash for the win and a really big pop. I thought this was a lot of fun. I thought it was really well worked. JBL's rugged offense was a perfect match for Rey selling. Chavo comes out to celebrate with Rey, and I thought the blood under the mask was a nice touch. It added a lot of drama. And JBL's really good at playing that up, being a dickhead, like targeting that cut over and over. I thought it was a really good first pay-per-view defense for Rey and makes him feel like the top player of the brand. Again, complete dichotomy to everything else going on. It feels like this guy's your ace on SmackDown when you watch this match, and it's against everything else we've seen. But I thought it was a really good main event. I thought they worked hard. I liked the psychology. I liked the bleeding under the mask. And I think JBL, who takes a break after this to rehab his back, goes out strong with his performance.
Yeah. I still just can't fathom how much better this match was booked than everything else. Again, point one, foregone conclusion, JBL was losing. So a main reason they probably should have come up with another challenger, but we've kind of debunked that he really, couldn't. Number two, this may have been the high point of Rey's reign, since we mentioned the TV stuff was trash, so we've already gone over that. And this should have been his burying as a main eventer. There's really nothing else you could have done for JBL at this point. I think he's exhausted all of his main event cred. I think all of his credit has been spent from losing to Cena multiple times, losing to Batista, now losing to Rey. There's really nothing left for JBL to do as a main eventer. I think it's time for him to move on. And as we mentioned, he's going to take time off anyway, so that's a good thing. Having said that, question: is the roster in rough shape right now? Because of we've had a couple injuries. We've now tag team's been broken up. How do you think the SmackDown roster is at the moment?
Yeah, it's thinned out. I mean, they have talent here and there. They're trying to, inject some new talent.
I mean, their big guys coming back. So
right, Batista kind of takes over with JBL's going out. Orton being out hurts.
Yeah, that's
huge.
They're
okay. I mean, I think they're in better shape than they were in 2004, and probably even arguably in 2005. I think bringing some of the veterans in has helped, like a guy like a Finlay. I think this is a time where it may behoove them to go back to one brand if you look at how things have thinned out. But, I thought this pay-per-view held up fine. So I don't think they're at the point where, some of those 04 ones where it was, complete dreck, and you're like, how could you even sell this as a pay-per-view?
Right.
I thought there's enough here to get by, the opener, the Finlay match. Cruiserweight was pretty good. You know, you get the big shock of Taker. Like, that was a pretty fleshed out card. It's much better than Backlash, I'll say that. Is it an all-timer? No. But there's enough here to like. I mean, there's no... You know, I'd go 4 stars probably on Benoit Finlay, so that's your peak match. Nothing terrible. Everything else kind of settles in the middle. So, you know, C+, I think. I think it's around there, you know. It's just
it's
nothing actively bad. Nothing, you know, that is a show stealer, but it didn't feel like a waste of time.
No, better than Backlash.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely better than Backlash.
Yeah.
Does that make SmackDown the better... It's funny, Raw has the better champion. I mean, obviously, John Cena's looked a hell of a lot better. But pay-per-view building-wise, SmackDown has done a better job so far this year. We'll see how that develops through the second half of the year. I mean, plus we have a specialty show in June, which we'll talk about in the coming next couple weeks. Now, before we move on and wrap things up, let's go to our match of the year ballot or match of the year vote. We started Backlash 06. Our best match is the main event, Triple H against Edge and Cena. Worst match, Kane versus Big Show. I would contend, JR, that Benoit Finlay is better than the main event of Backlash.
Yeah. From a technical standpoint, probably. I think the main event of Backlash had more heat. It was more exciting. Better star power. Benoit Finlay in a vacuum is better. I definitely have them 1-2 right now. So I'm fine if you want to put Finlay Benoit 1, but I think it's close.
Okay.
I think there's nothing close here to Kane Big Show.
No, that match is absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
And we may see some candidates further on down the line.
Right.
That match that, but... All right, so there is your Judgment Day 2006. Now, how has the year been for pay-per-view so far?
Are we talking Mania to Mania or for calendar year?
For calendar year. The calendar year of 2006.
Up and down. I think you could argue this is... I don't know, I'd have to look at No Way Out or listen back to No Way Out again. I mean, this is probably a top 3 show. A Mania, I think, has been the best show of the year. And then this and No Way Out are your next 2. Revolution, Rumble, and... Rumble was terrible. Rumble and Backlash are both terrible. I don't know which one's worse. Probably the Rumble just because of expectations, but...
well, we'll revisit this question after the next 2 vaults because, a huge creative project begins in the next month that changes things up dramatically for the next, 5 years. So... we'll continue to think about that because, again, as we started this year, we kept saying that 2006 was a strange year for was it really good? Was it really trash? We don't kind of remember.
And I think if we're ranking, just like we said, our new year, let's put this one. We'll rank as we go. I'd put this one Backlash too.
Yeah, obviously. The show's way better.
All right, so that'll do it. Judgment Day 06 in the books. So we're going to be at you weekly. We got some different stuff planned. One Night Stand, obviously, is our next vault, but that's probably going to be 2 weeks out. We got something in between next week. As of now, it's planned, so we won't divulge yet. We also have an interview in the works for here in June, too. So lots going on, but at least through June, we should be at you weekly as we track through 06. We do anticipate a guest for One Night Stand as well, so a lot going on. Stay tuned to the PTB Network on Twitter and Facebook to listen for updates as the shows go along. Be sure to check all our podcasts, subscribe to all our feeds on iTunes, and of course, we have another big announcement coming soon about another podcast feed, so be sure to listen in for that too. So, lots going on here, Placement Nation. The fun never stops as we approach our 3rd birthday. Of course, coincides with the Feast of St. Justin, so I'll be looking forward to that. And
fuck. Thought you'd never know that.
My time is now. All right, we're out. We'll talk to you next week with something or other. Until then, Scott, Justin, I'll see you Saturday, and we'll talk to the rest of you next week.
Wonder who has more women, Giante in Buenos Aires?
I think it's D'Amato and Armento.
That's fascinating.